students, African perspectives, pre-colonial societies and resistance movement. For more on this, we are joined by Professor Paul Maluleke, history at Holy House School and president of the South African Society for History Teaching, Dr. Lee Defoe. Good to have you on. Thank you very much for your time and coming. Professor, maybe let me begin with you. I mean, how will the Department of Basic Education ensure historical truth while shifting to an Afrocentric lens?
No, thank you very much for inviting me. I think firstly, perhaps we must correct the introduction. I'm not with WITS. I'm with UNISA College of Education. I'm an associate professor of history education.
Right, I beg your pardon. I think we'll fix that very quickly.
And I think it also should also extend to the other members.
Yeah,
because it's incorrect. But anyway, if you can just repeat your question.
I'm asking you, how will the Department of Education ensure historical truth while shifting to an Afrocentric lens in terms of how they're going to present the curriculum?
Okay, but I think the question should be framed different. What then do you mean by historical truth? Because that question is actually loaded in the sense that what might be truthful to you historically might not. So if we reframe that question, perhaps then it would also imply another question. How then do we balance in terms of historical truth towards actually living in Africanized schools historically?
And how would, I suppose, the central authority staying with the Department of Basic Education ensure that?
I don't think central authority actually is within the Department of Basic Education, because if you look at the historical tests, a lot of them are actual professional historians who are trained to think independently. So what they do is to actually research on whatever work they've been given to research on, and what they also do is to actually suggest to the department. So in terms of authority, I don't think it solely relies with the department, but it also relies with other stakeholders who are involved in the process.
Yeah, and so how much weight? We know government processes, fundraising can be back and forth, but how much weight will then be put onto those submissions that are going to come in? I mean, we are sitting with a ballot here right now that has been pushed back and forth because others are saying, well, much of what we wanted in was not considered.
Yeah, I think that's where the problem lies, because even if you look at 2015, when the HMTT started its processes, a lot of teachers actually came out and said, but we are not part of the process, and we are the ones who are actually required to implement whatever curriculum comes forth. How then do you propose a curriculum where we are not actually part of the process? So I think that's something we should zoom in very well as a country to certainly try to resolve.
And in terms of quality assurance, which organizations do you think would work here as being the gatekeepers of the standards educationally, I suppose, and the objectivity that we're doing?
Thank you so much for having me. Most importantly, thank you for also including the teacher's voice, because for the longest time, teachers tend to be silenced in these processes, but they're the same people who need to implement these new changes. And I think as a starting point, it is important to note that it is not just organizations that should be at the forefront of ensuring quality in terms of what is implemented within the schooling system in South Africa, but it is also the people who work in the actual classrooms that should also be at the forefront of those discussions. Because the reality of it is, if you currently look at the curriculum itself and the amendments that have been made, you notice the fact that some of these things are out of touch with the reality of how schools actually function and work. And that is problematic, because what's the whole point of having a document with all of these topics that you intend to teach in classrooms, but there isn't actually enough time to allocate it?
Right. So speaking of time frames, then therefore, when you look at the kind of work that this is going to require, is there a time frame in your mind as teachers where you think this should be the time in which this is phased in?
I think the first thing to take note of is I do not necessarily speak for all teachers. But I think it's important to note the fact that if you look at the fact that the whole curriculum has been changed completely, it means that we need to actually phase it out in different grades. So every year a grade would basically experience the changes in terms of the curriculum. In that way, we are also able to train educators to be able to teach the content itself. Because we cannot assume the fact that teachers who, yes, have been teaching for a very long time might know how to teach the content. But it is also important to take note of the fact that we've got students who are leaving universities, going into the classroom for the first time, who also need to be trained in terms of how to teach the content. The other thing to take note of is teachers tend to be teaching the same content for many years. So change is another thing that we need to take note of. That might be a challenge for some educators to adapt to. So you can't necessarily then force it in to say that everything should be implemented in 2 years or 5 years, because then you're going to have a quality issue. And let us also take note of the fact that if you are phasing it in from primary school, it allows teachers to be able to adjust to the changes that need to be made. Also in resources, because it isn't just the content that teachers need to prepare, but it's also having access to those resources to be able to teach effectively in the classroom.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you. Does this proposal bring South Africa closer to an educational model that I suppose is relevant for our countries?
I think it does, in all honesty. It is certainly an Africa centric curriculum, but that's the continent we live in or live on. But along with that, I don't see it as parochial or narrowly focused at all. What I see in this curriculum is a lot of effort that's been taken to integrate Africa into the wider global world. So South African students will be able to see South Africa within the world. And I think it's also a far more coherently structured curriculum than was the previous one. It should bring them into the present very well and help them to understand how we got to where we are today.
Is it a uniquely South African approach, or does this put us on par, such as other things, maybe more directly to say with our BRICS partners, for example?
I would think it puts us on par, in the sense that in historically writing in the past decade or two, there have been significant shifts away from purely local and regional histories to global histories. So it's the interaction between the local and the global. And I can see those principles have been implemented in this curriculum that is practiced around the world by students at the moment. So I would consider this, yes, Africa-centered, but globally competitive.
Prof, I mean, maybe you reframe the question. It's not the right one. But why now? Why now? Is this curriculum change a genuine pedagogical evolution, or is it a calculated move?
Why not now? I mean, we have been in democracy for the past 8 years, and curriculum change is not something that we carry out today. There has been previous curriculum from the curriculum before the 1994 elections, which was the pre syllabus, where curriculum experts in government were sort of thinking about what kind of curriculum we should actually adopt as a democracy. Post that, we had curriculum 2005, which was a direct result of the neoliberal policies that the Labour government actually adopted, which was an outcomes-based education, and it did not fail. So we had to change. Then we had the reverse curriculum, it did not work for us. We had CAPS, yes, it does work, but we see that it can be strengthened, right? So the overhaul is around how can we strengthen the curriculum. So we are strengthening it now. So to answer your question, I think in my view, when we want to transform and decolonize and Africanize the curriculum, it's a process. It's not something that happens overnight.
And if you look at all those instances where there's been a shift in the curriculum, has like many policies really made a significant difference.
100%, yeah, it has. So it shows that as a country we're actually moving forward. I mean, I've been reading a lot of comments before, but very powerful academics, if you like, in the country who were saying people who are actually implementing and suggesting this curriculum are actually see and feel. And I'm like, but hold on, we actually raised the curriculum in relation to what has been happening since 1994. So I think we're in the right space and we need to embrace it.
and I was coming to that. Does this help us in terms of fostering supervision, or is this going to be another one of those points where you can report?
I think it does assist us because what the curriculum document essentially says is that let's trace the past from a digital perspective. So the engagement perhaps could be the question, how then does the engagement happen? Because I can promise now, if you look at other communities, they are saying that we have done away with the recall, the consciousness topic as a standalone topic. But if you read the actual document, it says we are still going to teach recall and black consciousness, but not as a standalone. We are going to incorporate it into the national question. So what that should tell you is that the framing of that topic is to say now, we're not only going to leave recall and the black consciousness movement into the semantics and it says we actually have to look at them as continuities in the 80s and even now in 2015, 2016 in the Christmas Hall. How could black consciousness actually inform and shape those targets? You see, so the framing for me is very important. So my argument is that the other commentaries that are against the curriculum, they do not deeply actually engage with the curriculum. They just look at the topics and we can entertain this. But where I'm sitting, if it's done right, we can actually forge special curriculum.
And from teachers' point of view, I mean, others will look at this and say, there we go again, messing around with stuff that is lowering the bar so that students just pass easily. In fact, you'll get a politician that will come and say, let's just focus on coding and robotics. I mean, forget this thing about this debate that is raging on when actually young people are out there, 46% of them are of employment. They need actually skills that are going to get them employed. What would you say?
Actually, as a history teacher that codes, believe it or not. But I do feel that there is a point where history can actually meet the technological changes that are happening in the classroom. And in one of those ways, I mean, something that I always speak to is the fact that the history that we teach could also be coded into a digital museum, for example, as a project. So I think it's important for us to also understand that history as a subject isn't just about us learning about the past, but it's actually about 21st century skills, which is critical thinking, collaboration, and communication. Those are important skills that our learners actually need to have. And in this digital age that we are moving towards, a lot of our learners actually struggle with critical thinking. So it isn't necessarily just in the history subject as a whole, but in also other subjects. And this is why the department is also speaking about how can other subjects work together in providing our learners with skills. But I think it's also important for us to understand that you have mainstream schools, you have schools of specialization. So we need to understand the fact that a mainstream school will provide soft skills, and there's nothing wrong with that.
You have had sight of it, Prof, and I'm sure you yourself have as well. There's a section that is in the draft on gender and liberation. Others are saying this is the most progressive and perhaps also the most controversial too.
I see progressive and I don't see controversial. Please explain how is it controversial to include gender? Everyone of us at this table is gendered as we sit here. And gender experiences are part of the human experience. It's actually part of all history, as we would say, is race and age and context, etc. So I think it's crucial that children learn that, and it shouldn't just be treated as a standalone topic. Actually, it should be integrated in everything our kids learn, because we are multifaceted human beings.
Yeah. How do you see that integration? Talk to me about where you see that move from a section to actually integration into all society.
So, for example, it's yes, there's a section on the liberation movement, and then of course we would look into detail at Women's March in 1956. But you could also look at women in exile, women as part of the struggle. You can look at the UDF and its struggles and community struggles during the 1980s, which also organized women's groups. If you had to study nationalisms, there's so much in terms of how women transmit nationalism within the home and in schools. So women are participants at all times, and one would expect a teacher to bring that into the curriculum throughout, but it helps to highlight it in this particular regard in order to create that consciousness.
Prof, let me close with you finally. The South African History Archives and academics like yourself, figures like, some professors have come out to say, I don't want to mention names here, but I'm sure you know, that these changes are anti-colonial.
Sure. I really don't want to entertain that thought because again, the HMTT task 2 was actually negative, highly restricted academics who are actually intellectual in their own right? Right? So if I'm in disagreement with your point, it doesn't make me anti-intellectual. I think let's just leave there because if we go into it in detail, then it will open another kind of points that we don't want to entertain at this moment.
Let's leave it there. I appreciate you. Thank you very much for coming by. That's probably like a letter of Filipino, as well as Dr. Lindy Ghosts. Okay. When I got your sporting news, interesting statements.
Business Minute. Debt snowball method. Debt can feel overwhelming, but what if there was a proven way to take control of it? Created by Dave Ramsey, the debt snowball method tackles debt through small wins that build momentum. This is how it works. First, start by listing debt smallest to largest, paying minimums, and then focus extra cash on the smallest first. Research shows paying small debts first boosts motivation to tackle bigger ones. In the end, it's not just about numbers, it's about taking control of your future, one step at a time.
Literary Minute, Malcolm Gladwell. What makes a genius? How do trends spread? Can 10,000 hours of practice really make you an expert? Malcolm Gladwell is an author known for turning complex ideas into engaging stories. Born in England and raised in Canada, Gladwell became a journalist before joining The New Yorker in 1996. Gladwell's breakthrough came in the year 2000 with The Tipping Point and Outliers, introducing us to the famous 10,000-hour rule. His podcast, Revisionist History, re-examines events and ideas we thought we knew. Gladwell's influence extends beyond books, shaping business strategies, education, and everyday perspectives. Gladwell challenges our thinking on success, culture, and decision-making, reshaping what we thought we knew.
Hello, good afternoon to you from the sports desk. Let us start on the road after Jankic won his first ultramarathon. The two oceans had previously won the half marathon. Jankic won it in a time of 3 hours, 9 minutes and 25 seconds. He says it's cold to put him through his races in training, and he felt the race was made easier because of that preparation.
It has been a phenomenal big step. It's history in the making, as I was to say, because it's the first nation title for my down Northern Cape. We are slightly down the map, and yeah, and the job, Mr. Michael John, he put me through the worst, so this was nothing for us. We in Delstrom, we are in the mountains, reaching 800 plus elevation, so this was 6 something. So we are used to the hills, we are used to climbing. This was nothing new. It was nothing new.
You make it sound easy. Yeah.
And on to football, Orlando Pirates Betway Premiership title ambitions took a knock as they were held to a draw by Richards Bay at the
Umhlatuzi Sports Complex. The home side opened the scoring early on in the matches to then it made a party shot in the back of the net. The Natal Rich Boys held on to the lead in the first half despite Highland's dominance in the stats sheet. Early on in the second half, Abdes Lamboadu's side equalized through Austrian Police. Parity only lasted 7 minutes when Indogo this time scored the second goal for Richards Bay. Heading towards the end of the match, it looked as though Richards Bay were going to come away with 3 points, but Lebon Siema equalized from outside the box. The drop point for the Buccaneers is not ideal in the context of the title race, as they are now a point behind Mamelodi Sundowns, with the leaders holding a game. Kaizer Chiefs have won 3 of their last 3 games in the season that has come with its ups and downs. This Sunday, they will have the opportunity to extend that streak to 4 when they host struggling with TS Galaxy at the FNB Stadium. The Gobela sides have snapped an 8-game winless streak, which they will look to end while riding on the momentum of reaching the Nedbank Cup last weekend. Newsroom Africa's Yolu Wetoshe.
With 3 wins on the spin, Kaizer Chiefs look to have certainly turned the corner with regards to their form. Victories over Durban City, Magesi FC, and Aubrey College have seen Amakosi gather winning momentum going into their next assignment against TS Galaxy. After a nervy finish to their 1-0 win over Durban City, the Glamour Boys found their scoring boost in a 2-0 win over Magesi at the Moses Mabhida Stadium, as well as a 3-1 come from behind victory against Orbit College in Gqeberha on Monday. They now switch their attention to a struggling Galaxy team that has not won a league game since the 21st of January. Chiefs midfielder Sibusihle Ndlovu is not taking them for granted, however.
At this time of the season, it is so difficult to really predict because everyone is playing for something. So even a point matters now. So it's going to be a very interesting game. We just need to thoroughly prepare very well for them and then to continue the winning streak, because that's what we need at this timing point to really finish at a high position, or as high as we would like to finish in the log.
Zofu says they will have to pose themselves on Galaxy. That will be the best way to enthuse the Chiefs faithful who will be watching them from the grandstands.
For a club of this magnitude, expectations are very high. We also need to really live to the standard of the expectations, you know. But obviously, the best way to answer that and live on that is to make sure that we get back to our winning streaks, and probably people will come back to the stadiums and we need to play better football, you know. So that's what has been happening, and hopefully people will start to have faith even more.
A victory for Chiefs will also see them boost their prospects of finishing in 3rd position at the end of the season. That will in turn give them another crack at playing continental football next season. The midfielder insists that togetherness in their camp will be key to potentially getting them over the line.
It's just unity. For us, it's just unity, and we need to be committed in everything that we do. It is a crucial time of the season. A lot of millions can occur. Everyone is playing for points. Everyone is playing for something. So it's very crucial. We just need to stick together at this timing point and make sure that each and every game that comes across us, we fight until the end, because the most important thing it is to give the fans the fight, at least, even if it's not a good game, but give them a fight, show them that you are fighting, you know. So I think that is important for us in the remaining games also.
You've also rallied the support of Chiefs fans heading into the game.
Obviously, we still plead with them to come give us that 12 men, because it is very much important for us and to cheer us up. We're going to try and fight from the first until the last whistle. And I'm asking them to really believe in everyone that is part of the starting 11 and also the South, because everyone has a role to play.
Zovu will be hoping to contribute to Chiefs winning 4 games in a row for the first time on Sunday, as well as stretching the gap between themselves and the rest of the chasing pack for 3rd place after the game against Galaxy. For Newsroom Africa on channel 445 via your
Former world heavyweight champions Tyson Fury is set to take part in his first fight since 2024 against the Russian Arslanbek Makhmudov. The 37-year-old hit the scales lighter than he was in his last bout, but still weighed more than his opponent. Fury recorded 121.5 kg, while the Canadian-based boxer weighed in at 120.1. The Beijing promised fans a knockout with the win, as the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium after spending 16 weeks in Thailand preparing for his first fight in 2 years. Former champion says that he still has a bit left in the tank as he comes out of retirement for the future time. And that's just what in this hour. We will have another update coming in the next hour. Stay with us.
Who do you think you are to start a bank with just 70 rand? Putting people before profit, sharing the best interest rate, hardest working people. So maybe schools are all, but who do you think you are to build a legacy for generations? City, we are 50 years of groundbreaking, industry shaking, people moving, innovation, and audacity. We are African Bank.
Any specific disasters planned for today?
Of course, Wheel and his BMW, flat tire, hit traffic when he's late.
He opted out of program when he got iWise insurance and roadside assistance.
Skip the branch. Visit iwise.co.za.
Crispy onion cheeseburgers for everybody, please.
Get more with a crispy onion cheeseburger, chips, and a free Coke for only $84.90. Wimpy, you're always welcome.
Big day ahead. Someone already had a power start. High in energy, 7D vitamins, and iron. Drugs cornflakes, power breakfast.
Just download and open the My DSTV app. Tap more. Check your available points balance. Select Pay Now. Choose how many days you'd like to use. Tap Proceed to pay and enjoy instant savings. You can also spend them with Boss Deals to earn even more points. The more points you earn, the more you save. And your monthly subscription will points. Earn, redeem, and enjoy with the My DSTV app. Training is now live.
What's the latest on that?
Just give us an update.
Marching against immigrants. The situation is still remains taking over. Your lab is going to be very important for this movement. That is so why we decided to South Africa. The Russia-Ukraine war. The two countries are a major supplier.
Today was a historic day. Funeral service of Pope Francis. The authorities are saying that those homes can no longer be
We are walking into one of their houses or the yacht. The road has been completely damaged. Divers have been peddling to make sure that there are no bodies left.
Mamuza was appointed the state funeral protocol.
We're not taking down the guys behind me are not having it.
For our own safety, we ask needed by police.
So the officers chasing us. Siege in Gaza. And for the situation, as we do know,
Finances.
that's correct.
And
So
he
meaning well, how people can achieve reasons. So it's
Channel 445.
As remind you, I certainly think Inverness South outgoing the party to that. He led to his success. The 9 officers arrested in connection with the murder of 4 people, including a fellow homicide. Both were dead in the state that Two people have been killed and 4 others wounded in a shooting in Delft. Saturday, the GA's Federal Congress currently underway is voted against the introduction of a deputy leader. The proposed amendment received 50.8% of the vote, falling short of the threshold required for adoption. Opponents argued that the GA's role in government, especially the GNU, has significantly increased the workload of the federal leader, making a deputy position necessary. Now, earlier delegates voted on a series of constitutional amendments aimed at strengthening party discipline. Joined now once again by our Hunter right for us out there in Midland. We've been speaking to various leaders within the Democratic Alliance, including those who are really strategic at the provincial level in terms of leadership, who foresee coalition management and all sorts, but also in the federal Congress and possibly looking at sustaining their leadership positions. What do they have to say?
Yes, so the mood here obviously is around how does the VA grow its support base and how does it get a bigger piece of the government's pie. But in the stage of conference, the mood is about legacy, and that is the legacy of John Steenhuisen. He is now the outgoing leader of the Democratic Alliance. And so after lunch, delegates here at the Congress dedicated time to honoring him, honoring his family as he bows out. Now, this would have gone very differently had he chosen to stay in the race and contest the election. He said not true. He said he will focus on his role as a Minister of Agriculture. And one person who's been serving alongside him for a very long time, but more so in cabinet, is Dean McPherson. Dean, next to Dean McPherson, thank you very much for your time. You delivered a speech honoring John Steenhuisen. In short, what is his legacy?
I think first of his legacy is that he knew when the right time to leave was, and in politics that doesn't happen very often. The second point is that he did what no other leader has done in the history of our party, and that's taken us into national government. And the third defining point of his legacy is grooming and mentoring and making space for the next generation of leaders in this party. And that's why we see this generational shift that's taking place in the year. And I said that it wasn't by miracle, it was a deliberate choice that John had made and something that he had worked towards.
Most of the candidates contesting for leadership positions are under 45 years old, millennials. So a young cohort of leaders, no matter who gets elected tomorrow. Talk to me a little bit about that.
It's hugely exciting. I'm 41, notwithstanding your leadership, of course. But I think that what the DA is purposely doing is saying, how do we now build a group of leaders that can take us through for the next 10 or 15 years, so that we create that long runway of stability. Now that we're the government of national unity, now that government is going to exist for some time, we now not only need to build stability in government, we also need to build that stability within the party. And I think that that's a very deliberate decision taken by the organization this weekend.
In your honoring of John Steenhuisen, you spoke about your history with him in Durban. You guys come from KwaZulu-Natal together. Talk to me about the role he played in shaping your political career.
Well, I was a young boy of 24 years old who just knew that he wanted to serve and he wanted to help his community, but didn't know how. John recognized that in me, and not only did he just mentor me and teach me the ropes and instill to me the basics of politics, which is activism, building a branch, etc., that he also helped me along the way, and he gave me opportunity. And that I'm incredibly grateful for. I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for the deliberate choices that John had made. And so I'm grateful on a personal level, and that's why I said, John is not just a leader, he's a friend to me. And so I'm amazed at what he's achieved. KZN and the politics of KZN and what we achieve as the DA KZN is down to what John taught us all those years ago around negotiation, around compromise, around understanding what your principles are, your bottom lines, etc. And that's why the government of provincial unity, which I am partly responsible for as the chair of the province, is so stable because of those principles, of those ethics that John had taught me all those years ago.
Thank you very much. That was talking to us about the legacy of outgoing leader John Steenhuisen. In a short while, there will be, the successors of John Steenhuisen, the possible successors of John Steenhuisen taking the stage. Jordan Zulu will address the Congress as well as Peter Giannusa. They are contesting the leadership position, and delegates here at this Congress will start voting for that position tomorrow morning as early as 6:30 up until 9:30. By midday or so tomorrow, we will know who the leader of the DA is. But definitely the DA doing a lot, to sort of craft its identity, to focus, as being said, on a leadership cohort that will take the party forward for the next 10 to 15 years, and to sort of overcome the instability that we have seen perhaps from the Musi Maimane era. Back to you, Thabo.